The champagne flute slipped from Jessica Parker's fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor of her tiny apartment. She stared at her phone in horror, her heart pounding against her ribs. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not when everything was already falling apart. No, 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 she whispered, frantically scrolling through her sent messages. There it was, the text she'd meant to send to her best friend Natalie about her disastrous blind date last night. Except she hadn't sent it to Natalie. Somehow, in her sleep-deprived state, she had texted Ryan Blackwood instead. Ryan Blackwood, billionaire tech mogul, her incredibly intimidating boss, who she'd never actually met in person despite working for his company for nearly a year. Jessica read the message again, cringing with each word. Last night was awful. He spent the entire time talking about his mother and asked if I'd go to Sunday dinner with them this weekend. I'm done with dating forever. I need a rich, hot billionaire to sweep me off my feet. Preferably one who doesn't live with his mom. Know any? She felt the blood drain from her face. She was going to be fired. She just knew it. 3 years of climbing the corporate ladder at Blackwood Enterprises, all destroyed by one careless text. Jessica had only gotten Ryan's number yesterday when her supervisor had included her in a group message about the upcoming product launch. Her phone buzzed and she nearly dropped it again. Who is this? The reply was simple, direct. Jessica's fingers trembled as she typed back, I'm so sorry, Mr. Blackwood. This is Jessica Parker from marketing. That message was not meant for you. Please disregard. I sincerely apologize for the unprofessional communication. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Jessica held her breath. Jessica Parker. The one who redesigned our entire brand identity last month. She blinked in surprise. He knew her work? Yes, sir. That was my project. Another pause, then, what's your address? Jessica stared at the screen. Why would he want her address? To send a formal termination letter? She reluctantly typed her apartment address, adding, Again, I'm truly sorry for the inappropriate message. His response came immediately. A helicopter will arrive in 20 minutes. Come now. Jessica read the message 5 times before its meaning sank in. A helicopter? Was he serious? She glanced around her messy apartment, still littered with takeout containers from a week of late nights, working on the Blackwood mobile launch campaign. Why would Ryan Blackwood send a helicopter for her? Unless, was this some elaborate way to fire her in person? Her phone buzzed again. Bring your portfolio and wear something appropriate for dinner. Dinner? With Ryan Blackwood? Jessica ran to her bedroom, yanking open her closet doors. What did one wear to dinner with a billionaire who was potentially going to fire you? She settled on a sleek black dress she'd splurged on for client meetings, but had never actually worn. Professional but not stuffy. 17 minutes later, portfolio clutched to her chest and hair hastily styled, Jessica heard the unmistakable whirring of helicopter blades. She rushed to her window and looked out to see a sleek black helicopter descending onto the small park across from her apartment building. Her phone buzzed again. We're waiting. This was insanity. Complete insanity. Yet Jessica found herself grabbing her purse and rushing down the stairs of her building. The warm June air whipped around her as she approached the helicopter, ducking instinctively, though the blades were well above her head. A man in a crisp uniform opened the door, gesturing for her to climb in. The interior was luxurious, all cream leather and polished wood, and there, sitting with casual confidence, was Ryan Blackwood himself. Jessica had seen his photos, of course. Everyone had. The 35-year-old tech genius graced the covers of business magazines regularly, but nothing had prepared her for his presence in person. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes, a piercing blue that seemed to see right through her, were fixed on her face. Mr. Blackwood, she managed, her voice barely audible over the helicopter's engines. I'm so sorry about... He waved his hand dismissively. Sit down, Jessica, we have a lot to discuss. She sat across from him, clutching her portfolio like a shield. The helicopter lifted off, and Jessica watched her apartment building shrink beneath them as they rose over Manhattan. Do you know why I asked you here? His voice was deep, with a hint of amusement. Jessica swallowed hard. To fire me in a spectacular fashion? A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. No, though your text was unexpected. It was completely unprofessional and not meant for you, Jessica rushed to explain. I was texting my friend about a bad date and somehow your number... Jessica, he cut her off, I didn't bring you here to discuss your text, although it was certainly an interesting introduction. He leaned forward slightly. I brought you here because your branding work for Blackwood Mobile was brilliant. So brilliant that I've been trying to meet with you for weeks, but your director keeps scheduling meetings with himself instead. Jessica blinked in surprise. Director Walsh has been intercepting your meeting requests. Ryan nodded, his expression darkening. Walsh has been taking credit for your work. I suspected as much, which is why I had your name added to the group text yesterday. I wanted to see if you'd reach out. And instead, I texted you about needing a rich, hot billionaire, Jessica said, mortification washing over her again. To her surprise, Ryan laughed, a genuine warm sound that transformed his face. Not exactly what I expected, but effective nonetheless. The helicopter banked sharply, and Jessica looked out the window to see they were approaching a sleek skyscraper with a helipad on top. Where are we going? My office, and then dinner. He studied her with those intense eyes. I have a proposition for you, Jessica Parker. As the helicopter descended onto the helipad, Jessica's mind raced. A proposition? From Ryan Blackwood? The man whose company she'd dreamed of climbing through the ranks in? Whatever it was, this wasn't how she'd imagined her Friday night going when she'd sent that accidental text this morning. The helicopter touched down, and Ryan stood offering his hand to help her up. Ready? Jessica took his hand, feeling a jolt of electricity at the contact. Ready for what exactly? His smile was enigmatic as he leaned closer, his voice dropping to just above a whisper. To have your entire life changed. Word count, 1 to 64 words. Wait, I see my word count is only 1 to 64, which is below the requested 1,450 words. Let me continue with the first chapter to reach the required word count. The elevator ride down from the helipad was silent, the tension between them almost palpable. Jessica clutched her portfolio tighter, hyper-aware of Ryan standing just inches away. His cologne, something expensive and subtle, filled the small space. Your work on the rebrand caught my attention immediately, Ryan said suddenly, breaking the silence. The way you incorporated the company's history while pushing it forward, it was inspired. Thank you, Jessica replied, surprised by the compliment. I spent weeks researching the company's evolution. I know. I saw the timeline you created. Most people don't bother to understand where we came from before suggesting where we should go. The elevator doors opened directly into a vast office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Welcome to my office, Jessica stepped out, momentarily forgetting her nervousness as she took in the spectacular view. The setting sun bathed the city in golden light, skyscrapers gleaming like jewels against the darkening sky. This is breathtaking, she murmured. It reminds me why I do what I do, Ryan said, coming to stand beside her. Every light represents someone's life, someone's story. Technology should enhance those stories, not complicate them. He turned to face her. That's what your designs captured, simplicity with purpose. Jessica felt a flush of pride. That was exactly my intention. Ryan gestured toward a sleek conference table. Show me what else you've been working on, the projects Walsh hasn't shared with me. For the next hour, Jessica found herself presenting her portfolio to Ryan Blackwood himself. Her initial nervousness melted away as she explained her concepts and strategies. Ryan asked insightful questions, challenged some of her ideas, and nodded appreciatively at others. It was the most engaged professional conversation she'd had in years. These campaigns for the Southeast Asian market, they're completely different from what Walsh presented, Ryan said, examining her mock-ups for a region-specific advertisement. Jessica frowned. What did Director Walsh show you? Ryan pulled out his tablet and brought up a file. This. She stared at the images on the screen, her original designs, but stripped of all the cultural nuances she'd carefully incorporated. These are my designs, but they've been altered. All the elements I included to appeal specifically to the diverse Southeast Asian markets are gone. I thought as much. Ryan's expression was grim. Walsh has been sanitizing your work, making it more generic, and taking full credit in the process. Jessica felt a surge of anger, but tamped it down. May I ask why you suspected this? There are hundreds of employees in the marketing department. Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment before answering. 6 months ago, I received an email that was clearly meant for someone else. It contained a first draft of the Blackwood mobile branding concept. Your concept, though I didn't know it at the time. It was sent from your email address. Jessica's eyes widened. I never sent... You didn't, Ryan confirmed. Walsh did, using your account. He probably thought he was forwarding it to his own email, but sent it to me instead. The next day, he presented the same concept as his own work, with some minor changes. I've been watching him since then, waiting to see what he'd do next. Jessica sank back in her chair, processing this information. So, when I accidentally texted you today, it gave me the perfect opportunity to finally meet the real talent behind the work, Ryan finished for her, though I wasn't expecting quite such a colourful introduction. His eyes sparkled with amusement. Jessica groaned, covering her face with her hands. I'm never going to live that down, am I? Probably not, Ryan agreed, but his tone was light. He glanced at his watch. We should head to dinner. I've made reservations at Azura. Jessica's hands dropped from her face. Azura? The restaurant with a 3-month waiting list. Being a rich, hot billionaire does have its perks, Ryan said with a wink that made Jessica's cheeks burn. As they rode the elevator down to street level, Jessica's mind whirled with questions. You mentioned a proposition earlier, she said finally. Ryan nodded, his expression turning serious. I'm creating a new division within Blackwood Enterprises, one focused on global branding and cultural integration as we expand internationally. I want you to lead it. Jessica stared at him in shock. Me? But I'm just a senior designer. I don't have management experience at that level. You have vision, Ryan countered, and integrity. Both are far more valuable than years of management experience. The elevator doors opened to reveal a sleek black car waiting at the curb. Think about it over dinner. This isn't a decision to make lightly. As they settled into the back of the luxury car, Jessica felt like she'd stepped into someone else's life. This morning she'd been worrying about making rent after spending too much on her sick cat's veterinary bills. Now she was being driven to one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city with Ryan Blackwood, discussing a promotion that would catapult her career forward by years. Why do I feel like there's more to this story than you're telling me? Jessica asked as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. Ryan's expression revealed nothing, because there is. But some things are better discussed over good food and excellent wine. He looked out the window, his profile sharp against the city lights. Let's just say Walsh isn't the only one I've been watching, and what I've discovered requires someone I can trust. Jessica felt a chill run down her spine despite the warm evening. Whatever Ryan Blackwood's proposition entailed, she sensed it was about much more than a promotion or her accidental text. And as the car glided through the Manhattan streets toward Azura, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that she was heading towards something that would change everything. The maitre d'Azura recognized Ryan immediately, bowing slightly as he led them through the dimly lit restaurant to a secluded corner table. The space was intimate, with a spectacular view of the city lights now twinkling against the night sky. A candle flickered between them, casting shadows across Ryan's face as he studied the wine list. You mentioned Walsh isn't the only one you've been watching, Jessica said once they were alone, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. What did you mean by that? Ryan took his time answering, ordering a bottle of wine first, something French and undoubtedly expensive, before fixing those penetrating blue eyes on her again. For the past 6 months, I've had reason to believe someone inside Blackwood Enterprises has been selling proprietary information to our competitors. His voice was low, meant only for her ears. New product specs, marketing strategies, client lists, they've all somehow leaked ahead of our launches. Jessica's eyes widened. Corporate espionage, that's serious. Very serious and very difficult to prove. Ryan leaned forward, his expression intense. At first I suspected Walsh simply because of the stolen credit for your work, but then I noticed a pattern. Information was leaking specifically from projects your team was involved with. Jessica felt her stomach drop. You think I'm the leak? She straightened in her chair, indignation flaring. Is that why I'm here? So you can interrogate me over fancy wine? To her surprise, Ryan smiled, a genuine smile that softened his features. If I thought you were the leak, Jessica, you wouldn't be sitting across from me at Azura. You'd be meeting with our legal team. The sommelier appeared with their wine, pouring a small amount for Ryan to taste. He nodded in approval, and their glasses were filled. Jessica took a grateful sip, the rich flavor momentarily distracting her from the bizarre turn her day had taken. Then why am I here? She asked finally. Because I need someone I can trust to help me identify the actual leak. Ryan swirled the wine in his glass thoughtfully. Someone with access to the same information, but who hasn't been compromised. Someone whose work shows attention to detail and analytical thinking. Someone like you. Jessica nearly choked on her wine. How you want me to spy on my colleagues? I want you to lead the new international branding division. That part was entirely true. But I also want you to help me protect the company's future. Ryan's eyes held hers. The leak threatens everything we've built. Jobs, innovations, trust. Their conversation paused as the waiter brought their appetizers, delicate arrangements of seafood and microgreens that looked like art on the plate. Jessica picked up her fork automatically, her mind racing. If I were to consider this unusual proposition, she said carefully, what exactly would it entail? Ryan seemed to relax slightly. You'd work directly with me on the international expansion, legitimate work that uses your considerable talents, but you'd also have access to slightly different versions of sensitive information than your colleagues, traceable differences. Canary traps, Jessica murmured. Ryan raised an eyebrow, looking impressed. You're familiar with the concept. I read a lot of spy novels when I can't sleep, she admitted with a small smile, which has been often lately with the Blackwood Mobile launch. The stress of having your work stolen will do that, Ryan commented dryly. I should know my first company was essentially stolen from me by my former partner. Jessica looked up in surprise. Everyone knew Ryan Blackwood had founded his first tech company in college, selling it for millions before starting Blackwood Enterprises, but she'd never heard about a partner. That's not in any of the articles about you, she said. No, it's not. Ryan's expression darkened momentarily. David Marshall. We were roommates at MIT, started the company together in our dorm room. I was the technical genius. He was the business mind. Or so I thought. When we got our first major investment offer, I discovered he'd quietly registered the patents in his name only. What did you do? Jessica asked, captivated despite herself. What could I do? I was 20 years old with no money for lawyers. I took the buyout they offered, which was a fraction of what the technology was worth. Ryan's smile now was sharp-edged. But I learned a valuable lesson about trust and verification, and I used that money to start Blackwood Enterprises with ironclad protections this time. And David Marshall? Jessica couldn't help asking. Last I heard, he was trying to replicate my success with another startup. It's not going well. There was no gloating in Ryan's voice, just statement of fact. Which brings me back to our current situation. I built this company from nothing, Jessica. I won't let anyone sabotage it. Their main courses arrived, perfectly cooked scallops for her, steak for him. Jessica took a moment to gather her thoughts, savoring the exquisite food while considering Ryan's proposition. Why me? She asked finally. There must be people you trust more. People you've known longer. Ryan cut his steak methodically. Sometimes the people you've known longest are the ones you should trust least. They know all your vulnerabilities. He looked up at her. And to answer your question, your work shows integrity. The attention you paid to cultural nuances in your international designs tells me you care about doing things right, not just quickly. And frankly, your accidental text this morning confirmed you're not calculating enough to be the leak. Jessica felt her cheeks warm at the reminder of her embarrassing message. About that text. I really am sorry. Don't be, Ryan said, his expression lightening. It was refreshingly honest, and it led to this conversation, which might not have happened otherwise. As they continued dining, the conversation shifted to safer topics. Jessica's background in design, Ryan's vision for the company's international expansion, their shared love of mid-century architecture. Jessica found herself relaxing, surprised by how easy Ryan was to talk to when he wasn't being the intimidating CEO. You're not what I expected, she admitted as they shared a dessert, a decadent chocolate creation the chef had insisted they try. Neither are you, Ryan countered, his eyes warm in the candlelight. Most people meeting me for the first time either try too hard to impress me or are too intimidated to show their real thoughts. Well, after telling you I needed a rich, hot billionaire, I didn't have much dignity left to protect, Jessica quipped. Ryan laughed, and Jessica found herself thinking it was a sound she could get used to. She quickly pushed the thought away. This was business, she reminded herself. Complicated, unusual business. As they finished their coffee, Ryan's expression turned serious again. I need your answer, Jessica. Will you help me? Jessica took a deep breath. If I say yes to the new position, and to helping you find the leak, what happens to Walsh? That depends on what we discover, Ryan said carefully. If he's just a credit-stealing middle manager, he'll be demoted or moved laterally. If he's involved in the corporate espionage... He left the sentence unfinished. Jessica nodded slowly. And my team? The designers who've been working with me? They'll come with you to the new division if that's what you want, Ryan studied her face. "You're concerned about them. That's another reason I think you're right for this." The waiter discreetly placed the check on the table, which Ryan signed without even looking at the amount. Outside, the city hummed with nightlife, people moving from dinner to clubs or theaters, unaware of the strange proposition being discussed in the corner of one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. "I'll do it," Jessica said finally, "but I want everything in writing, the new position, the salary, my team's future. And I want to know exactly what information you're planning to use as bait." A slow smile spread across Ryan's face. "I knew you were smart. We'll draw up the paperwork tomorrow." He stood, offering his hand to help her up. "For tonight, I think we've discussed enough business." As they walked out of the restaurant, Ryan's hand rested lightly on the small of her back, a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. Jessica told herself the flutter in her stomach was just excitement about the career opportunity, not the proximity of the man beside her. The black car was waiting for them at the curb. "I'll have my driver take you home," Ryan said, opening the door for her. "Thank you for dinner," Jessica said, suddenly feeling awkward, "and for the opportunity, even if it comes with complications." Ryan's expression was unreadable in the dim light. "Get some rest, Jessica. Monday morning, your new life begins." He hesitated, then added, "And for what it's worth, your accidental text wasn't entirely wrong." "What do you mean?" Jessica asked, confused. Ryan leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I don't live with my mother." Before Jessica could respond, he closed the car door with a soft click, leaving her to ride home alone with her thoughts, her mind spinning with equal parts excitement and apprehension about what she'd just agreed to. By Monday morning, Jessica had convinced herself that Friday night had been some sort of elaborate dream, but the email waiting in her inbox proved otherwise, a meeting request from Ryan Blackwood himself, scheduled for 9 a.m. in the executive boardroom, with the subject line, International Division Leadership. She dressed carefully in her most professional outfit, a navy blue suit she'd splurged on last year for job interviews, before accepting the position at Blackwood Enterprises. Her stomach churned with a mixture of excitement and anxiety as she rode the elevator to the executive floor, a place she'd never had reason to visit before. The receptionist smiled warmly. "Ms. Parker, Mr. Blackwood is expecting you. Go right in." Jessica took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy wooden doors to find not just Ryan waiting, but a full boardroom of executives, including Director Walsh. Her heart sank. Had she misunderstood? Was this all some elaborate setup? "Ah, Jessica." Right on time, Ryan stood, gesturing to an empty chair beside him. "Please join us." Director Walsh's face was a mask of confusion as Jessica took the seat next to the CEO. "Ryan, I wasn't aware Ms. Parker would be joining the executive briefing," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "That's because you weren't informed," Ryan replied coolly. "Jessica is here at my personal invitation." He turned to address the room. "For those who haven't had the pleasure, this is Jessica Parker, the design visionary behind our successful Blackwood Mobile rebrand." Jessica felt Walsh's glare burning into her as Ryan continued. "Jessica will be heading our new international branding division, reporting directly to me. Her first task will be overseeing the cultural integration of our upcoming expansion into Asian and European markets." The announcement was met with murmurs of surprise and a few congratulatory nods from the other executives. Walsh's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "With all due respect, Ryan," he said tightly, "Ms. Parker lacks the experience for such a position. The mobile rebrand was a team effort, supervised by myself. Perhaps we should discuss this privately before—" "The decision has been made, James," Ryan cut in, his tone pleasant but final. "And speaking of team efforts, I'd like to personally acknowledge Jessica's work on the Southeast Asian marketing campaigns, the original versions, not the altered materials that were presented to this board." The room fell silent. Walsh's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Jessica felt a moment of vindication, quickly followed by discomfort at the public nature of the confrontation. "Now," Ryan continued smoothly, "let's proceed with our agenda. Jessica, I believe you have some thoughts on our approach to the Singapore market." For the next hour, Jessica found herself presenting ideas she'd developed months ago, but that had never seen the light of day under Walsh's leadership. The other executives were engaged and receptive, asking thoughtful questions that made it clear they valued her expertise. When the meeting concluded, Ryan asked Jessica to remain behind as the others filed out. Walsh was the last to leave, shooting her a look of pure venom before closing the door. "Well, that was dramatic," Jessica said once they were alone. Ryan's lips quirked into a half-smile. Sometimes the direct approach is best. Walsh needed to understand that his position is precarious, and the others needed to see that I have complete confidence in you. "Do you have complete confidence in me?" Jessica asked, still processing the whirlwind meeting. "I wouldn't have put you in that chair if I didn't." Ryan moved to a sideboard and poured 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Jessica. "But you should know that you've just been made a very powerful enemy. Walsh won't take this demotion lightly." Jessica wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Is he our leak? That's what we need to find out." Ryan leaned against the boardroom table. "I've had your office moved to the executive floor, effective immediately. Your team will join you there by the end of the week. In the meantime, I've had IT grant you access to the files we discussed." "The bait," Jessica murmured. "Exactly. 3 different versions of our confidential plans for the Singapore launch, each with subtle differences. Only you and I know which version went to whom." Ryan's expression was serious. "From this moment, you need to be careful who you trust, Jessica. Even casual conversations might not be what they seem." A knock at the door interrupted them. Ryan's assistant entered with a sleek leather portfolio. "The contracts you requested, Mr. Blackwood." "Thank you, Helen." He took the portfolio and handed it to Jessica once they were alone again. "Your employment agreement, as promised. The salary and benefits should exceed your expectations. Take it home. Review it with your lawyer if you wish, but I'll need your signature by tomorrow." Jessica opened the portfolio and nearly gasped at the figure on the first page. It was more money than she'd ever imagined making, more than triple her current salary. "This is very generous," she managed. "It's what you're worth," Ryan said simply. "Now, let me show you to your new office." The next few hours passed in a blur as Jessica was introduced to her new assistant, shown her stunning corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, and briefed on upcoming meetings. By lunchtime, her head was spinning with information. "One last thing before I leave you to settle in," Ryan said, pausing at her office door. "There's a company event this Friday, a charity gala for the Blackwood Foundation. As the new division head, your presence is expected." He hesitated, then added, "It would also be an excellent opportunity to introduce you to some key international contacts who will be attending." "Of course," Jessica nodded, already mentally cataloguing what in her wardrobe might be appropriate for such an event. "My assistant will send you the details. A car will pick you up at 7. With that, Ryan was gone, leaving Jessica alone in her new office, still trying to process how dramatically her life had changed in just 3 days. By Wednesday, Jessica had settled into a rhythm in her new role, already interviewing potential additions to her team and reviewing the bait files Ryan had provided. She was deep in concentration when her assistant buzzed her. "Ms. Parker, there's a courier delivery for you." Moments later, a large white box tied with a black ribbon was placed on her desk. Jessica opened it cautiously to find a stunning deep blue evening gown nestled in tissue paper, along with a note in a strong, masculine hand. "For Friday. I thought this might complement your eyes. R.B." Jessica lifted the gown, admiring the exquisite fabric and classic design. How had he known her size? And more importantly, why was the CEO sending her dresses? Was this normal protocol for executives? Somehow she doubted it. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Ryan, did the dress arrive?" Jessica hesitated before replying, "Yes, it's beautiful but unnecessary. I could have purchased something." His response came quickly. "Consider it a signing bonus. The photographer from Vogue will want to capture the new leadership team, and image matters in this industry." Vogue? Jessica felt a flutter of panic. What had she gotten herself into? Friday evening arrived all too quickly. The promised car delivered Jessica to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where the charity gala was being held. The grand staircase was lined with photographers, and Jessica felt painfully self-conscious as she made her way up, aware of the whispers around her. Who is she? Is that Ryan Blackwood's new division head? Did you hear she came out of nowhere? At the top of the stairs stood Ryan, devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His eyes widened appreciatively as she approached, making Jessica grateful for the hours she'd spent at the salon earlier that day. "You look stunning," he said simply, offering his arm. "Ready to meet the people who will help determine the success of our international expansion?" "As I'll ever be," Jessica replied, slipping her arm through his. For the next 2 hours, Ryan introduced her to a dizzying array of business leaders, diplomats, and influencers. To her surprise, Jessica found herself holding her own in these conversations. her knowledge of international markets and cultural sensitivities earning her approving nods from even the most skeptical executives. "You're a natural at this," Ryan murmured as they moved between groups. "I knew you would be. I'm just glad I haven't spilled champagne on anyone important yet," Jessica whispered back, making him laugh. As the evening progressed, Jessica noticed Director Walsh across the room, deep in conversation with a man she didn't recognize. The stranger was impeccably dressed, but somehow didn't fit with the crowd, too rigid, too watchful. "Ryan," she said quietly. "Who is that man talking to Walsh?" Ryan followed her gaze, his expression hardening. "Victor Zhao, CEO of Meridian Tech, our biggest competitor in the Asian market. Should they be talking like that? Looking so familiar?" "No," Ryan said, his voice low and dangerous. "They absolutely should not." Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. "You think Walsh is—" "Let's not jump to conclusions," Ryan cut her off, but his eyes never left the pair. "But I think we may have found our first real lead." As if sensing their attention, Walsh looked up and met Jessica's eyes across the room. His expression was cold, calculating, before he deliberately turned his back on her. "He hates me," Jessica said, surprised by how much that realization hurt despite everything she knew about Walsh. "He fears you," Ryan corrected, placing a protective hand on her lower back, "and he should." The orchestra struck up a waltz, and without warning, Ryan guided her toward the dance floor. "Dance with me," he said, his voice low. "It will give us a better vantage point to observe them." Before Jessica could protest, she found herself in Ryan's arms, being led through a perfect waltz. For a tech CEO, he moved with surprising grace. "Where did you learn to dance like this?" she asked, trying to ignore the warmth of his hand against her back. "My mother insisted on lessons, said no son of hers would embarrass her at society events." A shadow crossed his face. "She was big on appearances." "Was?" Jessica asked gently. "She died when I was in college. Cancer." Ryan's eyes refocused on Jessica's face. "But tonight isn't about the past. It's about watching Walsh while appearing not to watch him." As they circled the dance floor, Jessica caught glimpses of Walsh and Zhao moving toward a side exit. "They're leaving together," she whispered. Ryan nodded, almost imperceptibly. "And now we know for certain there's a connection." As the music ended, Ryan kept hold of Jessica's hand. "I need to make a call. Will you be all right on your own for a few minutes?" "Of course," Jessica assured him, though she felt suddenly vulnerable without his presence beside her. As Ryan disappeared into the crowd, Jessica made her way to the bar, requesting a glass of water. She was taking a sip when a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Enjoying your meteoric rise, Miss Parker?" Jessica turned to find Walsh standing there, his smile cold and threatening. "I always knew you were ambitious, but I underestimated just how far you'd go to climb the ladder. Tell me, what exactly did you do to win Ryan's favor so quickly?" The implication in his tone made Jessica's blood boil. "I showed him my original designs before you could take credit for them," she replied evenly. "Talent speaks for itself, Director Walsh." His smile vanished. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into," he hissed, leaning closer. "You're a pawn in a game you don't understand. Ryan Blackwood uses people, always has. When he's done with you, you'll be discarded just like all the others." Before Jessica could respond, Walsh straightened and nodded at someone over her shoulder. "Careful, Miss Parker. Accidents happen to those who aren't watching their step." With that cryptic warning, he melted back into the crowd, leaving Jessica with a sense of foreboding that not even the elegant surroundings could dispel. The warning from Walsh haunted Jessica through the remainder of the gala. Ryan returned from his call looking grim, but offered no explanation, and Jessica didn't press him in such a public setting. By the time they left, the night had taken on a surreal quality, the glamour tainted by undercurrents of threat and intrigue. "You're quiet," Ryan observed as they rode in his car toward her apartment. Streetlights flashed across his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw. "Walsh approached me while you were gone," Jessica admitted. "He made some implications about how I got my promotion, and then he warned me that I'm a pawn in a game I don't understand, that accidents happen." Ryan's expression darkened dangerously. "He threatened you?" "Not explicitly, but the message was clear." Jessica twisted her hands in her lap. "He also mentioned a game you're playing, that you use people and discard them. I know he's trying to manipulate me, but you're wondering if there's truth to it," Ryan finished for her, his voice carefully neutral. Jessica met his gaze directly. "Is there?" The car slowed to a stop outside her apartment building. Ryan was silent for a long moment, seemingly weighing his words. I've had to make difficult decisions in business. I've fired people who weren't performing. I've ended partnerships that weren't working, but I've never used someone as a pawn, Jessica." He reached across the space between them, his hand covering hers. "What's happening between us, the promotion, the investigation? It's not a game to me. Walsh is trying to drive a wedge between us, because together, we're a threat to him." His touch was warm, solid, reassuring. Jessica wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. "I'll have security assigned to you," Ryan continued, his thumb tracing small circles on her hand. "If Walsh is desperate enough to make veiled threats, we need to take precautions. You think he's really dangerous? I think he's cornered, and that makes him unpredictable." Ryan's phone buzzed, and he reluctantly released her hand to check it. His expression shifted as he read the message. "We need to talk. Not here." "My apartment," Jessica began, but Ryan shook his head. "Too risky. If Walsh has been planning this for months, he could have arranged surveillance." He pressed a button, and the privacy partition between them and the driver lowered. "Change of plans, Michael. Take us to the lodge." "Yes, sir," the driver responded, smoothly pulling away from the curb. "The lodge?" Jessica questioned as the partition rose again. "My private residence upstate. It's secure and we can speak freely there." Ryan loosened his bow tie, suddenly looking tired. "I've just received information that changes everything. We need to move quickly." Jessica glanced at her evening gown. "I don't exactly have clothes for an overnight trip." "There's a guest suite with everything you might need," Ryan assured her. "I often host international executives who arrive with little notice." As the city lights faded behind them and the car sped north along the darkened highway, Jessica felt a strange mixture of trepidation and trust. This man beside her, still largely a stranger despite their intense days together, was asking her to accompany him to his private home in the middle of the night. Logic said she should be wary, yet her instincts told her she was safer with Ryan than alone in her apartment with Walsh's threats lingering in the air. "This information you received," she ventured, after they'd been driving in silence for some time. "Can you tell me what it is?" Ryan's gaze remained fixed on the darkness outside his window. "Victor Zhao made a large wire transfer to an offshore account yesterday, an account we've traced back to Walsh." Jessica inhaled sharply. "So Walsh is definitely selling information. It appears so. But there's more." Ryan turned to face her fully. "The account has received regular payments for over 2 years, long before you joined the company, before your designs were being stolen." "So I'm not the leak, obviously," Jessica said, relief evident in her voice. "But why involve me in the investigation at all?" "Because the transfers coincide exactly with our product launches and marketing campaigns," Ryan explained. "Someone in the design department has been feeding information to Walsh, who sells it to Zhao. My initial suspicion fell on the department generally, not you specifically. And now? Now I believe it might be someone on your immediate team." Ryan's expression was grim. "Someone you trust." The revelation hit Jessica like a physical blow. Her team was small, just 5 designers she'd worked closely with for months. The idea that one of them was betraying not just the company, but her personally was devastating. "Who?" she whispered. "That's what we need to determine. The 3 different versions of the Singapore launch plans you've been reviewing this week, each went to a different member of your core team." Jessica's mind raced through the possibilities. Mark, the UI specialist who'd become a friend over happy hours and weekend brunches. Amber, the brilliant illustrator whose quiet efficiency Jessica had always admired. Trent, the copywriter with the quick wit and quicker fingers on a keyboard. If one of them is working with Walsh, they might know about our investigation by now, she realized aloud. "Exactly why we're not going back to your apartment tonight." The car turned onto a private road, winding through dense forest, before emerging at a set of imposing gates that opened silently as they approached. The lodge, as Ryan called it, was in fact a stunning modern mansion nestled against the backdrop of forested mountains. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the moonlight, and a series of terraced gardens led down to what appeared to be a private lake. "This is your lodge?" Jessica couldn't keep the awe from her voice as they stepped into a soaring entryway of warm wood and stone. Ryan's lips quirked in a small smile. "It's where I come to think, to be away from the noise of the city." A woman in her 60s appeared, somehow managing to look perfectly put together despite the late hour. "Mr. Blackwood, we've prepared the blue suite for Ms. Parker as requested." "Thank you, Mrs. Winters. Could you have some tea sent to the study in 20 minutes? "Of course, sir." Ryan turned to Jessica. "Mrs. Winters will show you to your room. There should be everything you need to change into something more comfortable. Join me in the study when you're ready." The blue suite was larger than Jessica's entire apartment, with a plush king-sized bed and a bathroom that featured both a rainfall shower and a deep soaking tub. As promised, the closet contained an assortment of clothing in various sizes. Jessica selected a pair of soft grey lounge pants and a matching cashmere sweater, quickly changing out of her evening gown. After washing her face and pulling her hair into a simple ponytail, she followed the discreet lighting in the hallway to find the study, a warm room lined with books, centered around a crackling fireplace. Ryan had exchanged his tuxedo for jeans and a simple black sweater that somehow made him look more approachable, more human. "Better?" he asked, looking up from his laptop as she entered. "Much," Jessica admitted, sinking into a leather armchair across from him. "Though I'm still processing everything that's happened. A week ago, my biggest concern was whether my cat would like his new food. Now I'm involved in corporate espionage and hiding out in a billionaire's secret mansion." Ryan's smile was tired but genuine. Life rarely moves in predictable lines. He closed his laptop and set it aside. "There's something else you should know, Jessica. Something I haven't told you about why this leak is so personal for me." The firelight cast shadows across his face as he continued. "Blackwood Enterprises is developing a new technology, one that could revolutionize how people in developing countries access clean water. It's been my passion project for years in memory of my mother. She grew up in a rural village with contaminated water sources. Even after moving to America and finding success, she never forgot. Before she died, I promised her I would do something about it." "The purification system," Jessica breathed, suddenly understanding. "The one mentioned in the Singapore files." Ryan nodded. "It's more than just another product launch. It's something that could save millions of lives. And if Meridian Tech steals the technology, they'll patent it, price it beyond reach, and use it solely for profit. While you plan to make it accessible, affordable, to fulfill my promise." Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of vulnerability. "That's why finding this leak matters so much. It's not just about business competition or pride. It's about what the technology represents." The arrival of Mrs. Winters with a tea tray interrupted the moment. As she arranged the service on a side table, Jessica tried to absorb this new dimension of Ryan Blackwood, not just the ruthless businessman or charming CEO, but a man driven by a personal promise to his mother. Once they were alone again, Jessica poured tea for both of them, finding comfort in the simple ritual. "So what happens now? How do we identify which member of my team is the leak?" "Tomorrow morning, Zhao's company is making a major announcement. If our suspicions are correct, it will mirror the information from one of the 3 versions you distributed." Ryan accepted the cup she offered. "Once we know which version leaked, we'll know who's working with Walsh. And then? Then we confront them, gather evidence, build a case solid enough to take legal action against both the leak, Walsh, and Meridian Tech." Ryan's expression hardened. "I won't allow them to steal what could help so many people." They discussed strategy for another hour, planning how to proceed once they identified the source of the leak. The warmth of the fire and the long, stressful day began to take their toll, and Jessica found herself stifling yawns. "You should get some rest," Ryan said gently. "Tomorrow will be challenging." Jessica nodded, rising reluctantly from her comfortable chair. At the door, she paused. "Ryan, thank you for trusting me with all of this. Not just the investigation, but the personal reasons behind it." He looked up, the firelight catching the unexpected vulnerability in his eyes. "Thank you for being someone I could trust." The morning brought clarity with the sunrise. Jessica woke to find clothing laid out for her, a perfectly tailored business suit that somehow fit as if made for her. Mrs. Winters had breakfast waiting, and by 8 o'clock Jessica was joining Ryan in his home office as he connected to a live stream of Meridian Tech's press conference. Victor Zhao stood at a podium, confidently announcing a revolutionary new water purification system for developing markets. As he detailed the specifications, Jessica and Ryan exchanged a look of grim confirmation. "It's version 3, Jessica said quietly. "The one I gave to Amber." Ryan nodded, his expression hardening. "She's been with the company longer than you have, probably feeding information to Walsh from the beginning." "I trusted her," Jessica said, the betrayal stinging sharply. "We all did. That's how the best spies operate." Ryan closed the laptop decisively. "Now we move." Events unfolded rapidly after that. Security teams were dispatched, evidence was gathered, and by noon, Amber had been escorted from the building, her devices confiscated. Walsh, anticipating the net closing around him, had attempted to flee but was intercepted at the airport. Both now faced serious legal consequences, along with Victor Zhao, whose company's stock was already plummeting on news of the industrial espionage charges. Through it all, Jessica maintained a composed exterior, though inside she was reeling from the betrayal of a colleague she'd considered a friend. By evening, when the initial crisis had passed, she found herself back at the lodge with Ryan, debriefing over a simple dinner prepared by Mrs. Winters. "It's really over?" Jessica asked, still hardly able to believe how much had happened in a single week. "This chapter is," Ryan confirmed. "Walsh and Amber will face industrial espionage charges. Meridian Tech is already issuing retractions and apologies, trying to distance themselves from Zhao's actions, and the water purification system." A genuine smile spread across Ryan's face. "We'll announce our actual version next month, the one that's significantly more advanced than anything Zhao thought he was getting." Walsh never had access to the real specifications. Jessica raised her eyebrows. "You set a trap within a trap." "I learned long ago to always have contingency plans." Ryan lifted his wine glass in a small toast. "But I couldn't have exposed them without you, Jessica. Your insight about Amber, your willingness to take risks, you've more than earned your position." "So what happens now?" Jessica asked, the question encompassing far more than just business. Ryan set down his glass, his expression turning serious. "Now, if you're willing, we build something meaningful together. The international division still needs a leader with vision and integrity. The water project needs someone who understands its importance beyond profits." "And us?" Jessica ventured, finally asking the question that had been hovering between them for days. Ryan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "That depends on you, Jessica. I know this all started with an accidental text about needing a rich, hot billionaire." His lips quirked in a smile. "But I'd like to think we've moved beyond that now." Jessica felt warmth spread through her at his touch. "Well, you did check all the boxes in my accidental wish list," she teased, though her heart was racing. "But you're right. This is something else now, something real." "Then perhaps we should see where it leads." Ryan's thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. "Starting with dinner tomorrow night? Just us, no corporate espionage or emergency helicopter rides." Jessica smiled, feeling for the first time in days that she was exactly where she was meant to be. "I'd like that." As the sun set over the private lake, casting golden light through the windows, Jessica realized that her accidental text had indeed changed her entire life, but in ways she never could have imagined. What had begun as mortification had led to professional recognition, unexpected adventure, and now possibly something even more valuable, a connection with someone who saw her exactly as she was and valued her for it. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, she would face them, not alone but with Ryan beside her, both of them stronger together than apart.